Hey everybody, Matty here with Altcoin Buzz, TGIF, and happy Friday. Of course, we're talking today about the ballooning national debt, the U.S. national debt, that is. I guess that's kind of redundant, it goes without saying, but it has topped now $27 trillion. We'll take a look at what the implications are there, and in tandem with that, we have the Department of Justice out of the U.S. that have just released a lengthy report detailing the threats associated with cryptocurrency. Kind of ironic to me that this comes really at the same time that this $27 trillion figure is made public. Nevertheless, William Barr, U.S. Attorney General, is indicating that cryptocurrency, quote, plays a role in many of the most significant criminal threats our nation faces. As you can imagine, we disagree. Nevertheless, we'll talk you through that and let you know where you can find that detailed 83-page report. On ambcrypto.com, we have news about the BitMEX CTO, Chief Technical Officer, who's been released on a $5 million bond, which is pretty high if you think about how Derek Chauvin, who's the officer associated with the George Floyd mess, was released on a $1 million bond. So $5 million is very, very significant indeed. Then we have news on altcoinbuzz.io. Square buys Bitcoin worth $50 million. We have so much news indicating that Jack Dorsey is more bullish than ever when it comes to Bitcoin. Not the least significant hint is what he has in his Twitter bio. We'll talk here on medium.com about Polkastarter, which has partnered with DIA for DeFi trading. We'll also talk about 1inch, which has partnered with Hacken for security purposes, and Solana is also in the news. They're looking to connect Ethereum to Solana with Wormhole. Guys, if you like this kind of content, Bitcoin, blockchain, and cryptocurrency, then be sure to like and subscribe. The markets are looking pretty good today. We're up 3.6%, so it's a veritable sea of green. We're at $355.8 billion right now. Many projects up several percentage points. Looking here, you have Ethereum up 4.9%. You have Binance Coin up 3.9%. Chainlink is up 14.2%. Polkadot up 9% even. Cardano up 5.1%, even though its ranking has slipped as of late. You may have noticed that in these last few weeks. Multiple projects doing really well. Yearn Finance, I believe, is also up 25% at the time of this recording. So a very nice day indeed for the markets. Bitcoin right now sitting over $11,000 for the first time in a while. It's up 3.3% in the last 24 hours. $11,075.98 right now as I record, with a Bitcoin dominance of 57.6%. National Debt Tweets here on Twitter is alerting us to the fact that yesterday, just after 6 p.m., the U.S. national debt surpassed $27 trillion, which is a huge figure and one that is, I'd say worrisome, but to be honest, I think a lot of people have just ignored this. It's become kind of almost like an arbitrary figure. It doesn't really matter what the numbers read to many people. It's something that we've almost forgotten about. It's no longer part of the public discussion. Fiat money here with some very good responses. Facts. U.S. government has printed and spent $103 trillion in taxed back 77 trillion. We kept the 26 trillion. So the national debt equals effectively our assets, our treasury bonds, and our dollars. We don't owe it. We own the debt. The aim of the debt scares funded by Wall Street is to get us to agree to cut Social Security. That last point, I think, is one of contention. We won't launch quite into that, but here's an interesting quote that I wanted to bring up. As the sole manufacturer of U.S. dollars, whose debt is denominated in U.S. dollars. Again, the debt associated with U.S. dollars is itself denominated in that same currency, U.S. dollars. Therefore, the U.S. government can never become insolvent. In other words, unable to pay its bills. It will never reach that point, again, because it is the sole manufacturer of US dollars and its debt is designated and denominated in US dollars. So in this sense, the government is not dependent on credit markets to remain operational. Moreover, there will always be a market for US government debt at home because the US government has the only means of creating risk-free dollar-denominated assets. Is it any wonder that the BRICS countries of the world, that the independent thinkers of the world are starting to look at ways that they can move beyond this US dollar-based hegemony in the global trade arena? And then in tandem with that, you have this news coming out of Washington at AltcoinBuzz.io alerting you to the fact that today, the Department of Justice wrote an 83-page report about how cryptocurrency, quote, plays a role in many of the most significant criminal threats our nation faces. Forget about $27 trillion in debt. Forget about the petrodollar that's fueling illegal and unwarranted wars, immoral and unethical, I should say. that should probably preface any part of the discussion. Forget about all that. Forget about all the financial crimes that are happening really legally under this inflating debt structure. It's cryptocurrency that plays a role in many of the most significant criminal threats our nation faces, talking, of course, about the United States. They forgot to mention that the biggest financial criminal organizations are the banks. So there you have a little bit of our editorial, I suppose, on the subject. Here you have from the United States Department of Justice, I guess not the full report, but information about the report. Here is a quick excerpt. Cryptocurrency is a technology that could fundamentally transform how human beings interact and how we organize society. Ensuring that use of this technology is safe and does not imperil our public safety or our national security is vitally important to America and its allies, said U.S. Attorney General William P. Barr. I am grateful to the Cyber Digital Task Force for producing this detailed report, which provides a cohesive, first-of-its-kind framework for those seeking to understand federal enforcement priorities in this growing space. And this continues, of course, different excerpts here, different quotes that you can take a look at. But the Cryptocurrency Enforcement Framework can be downloaded in full here. Link is at the bottom of this page. We will link to this page in the description below. Look, 83 pages, it's probably more than you want to sift through, but let's see who kind of takes this up, who starts citing this, who starts referencing it. Unfortunately, the valence of the report is kind of negative for the time being, again, casting a rather negative light on cryptocurrency. And they're going to be citing things like what happened recently with the BitMEX kerfuffle, unfortunately. So needless to say, we kind of disagree as a default stance. We disagree with the premise and with the perspective of this report, but they are going to use this as a weapon moving forward in their arsenal to continue attacking cryptocurrencies. I think, that's an opinion. Obviously, that's just my opinion, but I think that's the way the cards are starting to fall here. That seems to be what is taking shape. Talking about that recent BitMEX set of indictments here on ambcrypto.com, the BitMEX CTO has been released on a massive $5 million bond. Again, that is a huge sum, a $5 million bond, likely because it's an individual of some means and a wealthy individual, but their CTO, Chief Technical Officer Samuel Reed, who was charged and arrested by the U.S. Department of Justice on the 1st of October, has been released on a $5 million appearance bond. So you're starting to see what happens. Again, this is the Department of Justice. They've decided to crack down on BitMEX. They've decided to partner up with the SEC and really prosecute and, arguably harass some of these cryptocurrency exchanges and services and platform. In sync with that, they released this 83-page report condemning and demonizing cryptocurrency, really just the technology as a whole, and talk about the potential for misuse. It's the age-old argument, guys. Anything can be misused. Any piece of technology can be misused. Electricity can be inherently evil if you have this kind of approach and this kind of mindset. It can be used for both good and for evil purposes. That's just how it is. And they're starting to make examples of people. The CTO Reed, for example, was arrested on charges of violating the Banking Secrecy Act, the BSA, and, quote, willfully failing to establish, implement, and maintain an adequate anti-money laundering AML at BitMEX. That last part, I suppose there is an argument to be made about how they could have beefed up their AML efforts. But again, that's a point of some contention. I think there can be arguments made both ways. Samuel Reed, along with Arthur Hayes, who is the CEO of BitMEX, and two other BitMEX founders, have officially stepped back from their positions in light of the charges levied by the U.S. Department of Justice and the CFTC, the Commodities Futures Trading Commission. So I think the hammer is coming down, guys. I think BitMEX is the latest, probably won't be the last. Prepare for more of this as the weeks and the months continue to unfold. I think they're certainly trying to make a point. Again, they are not $27 trillion in debt for no reason. This is all part of a pattern. They want to maintain this system of control. And so there will be a concerted effort involving the SEC, the CFTC, the DOJ, and other organizations, including the publication of opinions, which I would argue amount to effectively government propaganda. That's what I'll label this 83-page cryptocurrency report as. That's just my opinion, but I do think the hammer is coming down. I think they're going to make a show of force here and crack down on individuals like Reed, like Hayes, and others to make an example out of them. Look, we're used to it, guys, though. We've been in this game now for a few years. We've seen plenty of FUD in the past. We can fully expect to see more of it. I think at this point, we're kind of immunized against it to a certain extent. Make sure you are following the law. Make sure your assets are safe. Take care of yourself. Always abide by the rules. Make sure you're not breaking any laws outright, and you'll be fine. We can still be part of this revolution and help move things along. There's no stopping us, that's for sure. There's no stopping Jack Dorsey either. We're looking at this piece here on altcoinbuzz.io. His company Square buys Bitcoin worth $50 million. So it's interesting the juxtaposition that we're seeing. We're seeing these guys like Arthur Hayes, these relatively prominent CEOs of major companies like BitMEX get indicted, get into all kinds of trouble. And then you have an even more prominent, a much more prominent CEO in the form of Jack Dorsey heading up Twitter, heading up Square, who's more bullish than ever on Bitcoin. And yes, you could argue that Bitcoin, it's different from a cryptocurrencies exchange, of course, but certainly it overlaps with that same space. This article here by Deepika. Payment company Square now owns 4,709 Bitcoin. Almost 1% of Square's treasury has been moved to Bitcoin. Quite an astounding figure. So what looks like a tremendous endorsement of Bitcoin is basically a strategic move by the company. The leadership at Square strongly believes that Bitcoin has the potential to be a ubiquitous currency in the future. As a result, the company moved a full 1% of its assets to Bitcoin. This is not unlike actions that we've seen recently by the likes of Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy, who made a major acquisition in Bitcoin. Deepika continues, the announcement by Square spread like a forest fire. Because of the popularity of Twitter and Jack Dorsey, this acquisition means a lot more than the recent Bitcoin accumulation by MicroStrategy, which I just mentioned. And that is because Jack Dorsey, like I said, is a very, very highly prominent CEO. He's a very, rather, I should say, public figure, but he's out there in the spotlight and he's very vocal, and he's got a platform to be as vocal as he wants to be. The significance of this announcement is big because we are now seeing corporates showing interest in Bitcoin as an inflation-resistant reserve. Earlier, Bitcoin had seen institutional adoption from a fund standpoint. And Jack Dorsey himself commenting on the matter here on Twitter at Jack, make sure you're following. More important than Square investing $50 million in Bitcoin is sharing how we did it so others can do the same. And he's linking here to his strategy, I suppose. I think what's also worth noting is if you take a look at Jack's Twitter bio here, he's only got one word, he's only got one statement in his Twitter bio, and that is hashtag Bitcoin. Again, hashtag Bitcoin. That is all he has to say in his Twitter bio page. Again, this is the CEO of Twitter and the CEO of Square. Hashtag Bitcoin is all he chooses to say. And I think, you know, that kind of almost lack of detail really does say it all. So how is Square keeping its Bitcoin safe? Why are they looking to invest in Bitcoin? And how does Jack Dorsey feel about other cryptocurrencies? We'll take a look at the rest of Deepika's article here, but we're very happy to have Mr. Dorsey in our camp as a proponent, as an evangelist for Bitcoin and the broader cryptocurrency market. I think he's making the right move personally. And now, again, another precedent is being set. We have the Michael Saylors of the world, the MicroStrategies of the world, and now the Jack Dorseys and the Squares of the world that are not only bullish about this, maybe for technology, maybe for personal investment purposes, but this is really becoming a diversification strategy. And financial planners and maybe eventually even pension funds, for example, will start incorporating these kinds of strategies into their own portfolios. Fingers crossed, at least. Okay, moving right along, we're on medium.com. We're now discussing Polkastarter, which has partnered with DIA for decentralized finance trading, pricing, and anti-slippage features. So with this partnership, the Swiss-based open source Oracle platform DIA will enable sourcing, verification, and use of data from its network participants in the Polkastarter ecosystem. Quote, DIA is the ideal Oracle partner for Polkastarter, which needs quick access to price feeds that power high slippage alerts. Thanks to DIA integration, our users can swap in a fair, transparent, and secure environment, says Daniel Stockhouse, Polkastarter's CEO, on the new partnership. Quote, Polkastarter is an exciting project. The idea of bringing a cross-chain compatible fundraising platform that leverages liquidity on various networks is another step towards an integrated DeFi ecosystem, DIA's co-founder Michael Weber says. We are happy to support Polkastarter's journey by fueling their platform with transparent and auditable cross-chain data. Now, to my knowledge, we have not really talked about Polkastarter at all in the past. Here's a quick line about them. They're a permissionless, decentralized exchange built for cross-chain token pools and auctions, enabling projects to raise capital on a decentralized and interoperable environment based on Polkadot, I guess hence the name. So with Polkastarter, decentralized projects will be able to raise and exchange capital cheap and fast, and users will be able to participate in a secure and compliant environment and to use assets that go way beyond the current standards associated with ERC20. As you can imagine, this has been well received by the community, and even though we're up 3.6% overall in the market, you have Polkastarter, whose ticker is POLS. They are beating out that market gain by a factor of 10, up 36% on the day to now over 52 cents. Again, POLS, Polkastarter, up 36% in these last 24 hours, likely on the heels of some of this very good news as far as their DIA integration. Also now on altcoinbuzz.io, we have some other quick news in the form of 1inch, which is partnered with Hacken for security purposes. This article by Daniel. 1inch has integrated Hacken to improve its security due to its excellent track record in the area of cybersecurity. So in a bid to improve security on its platform, 1inch has announced a partnership strategically with renowned cybersecurity solutions provider Hacken. They disclosed the collaboration via an official blog post, noting that the integration of Hacken will enable it to provide users with top-notch protection. And they had this tweet. This is going back about a week or so, even more, maybe 10 days or so, at 1inch Exchange. 1inch announces cooperation with cybersecurity firm Hacken. You guys can read more about that both in Daniel's article here as well as on medium.com. And finally for today, let's discuss Solana here at Solana. This from the 8th of October, so just yesterday. They have big news in the form of Wormhole, announcing Wormhole, a secure, trustless bridge connecting Ethereum to Solana. Continuing here and replying to themselves, Wormhole enables ERC20 tokens to be converted into SPL tokens to take advantage of Solana's speed, which is 50,000 transactions per second, and low fees, less than 0.1 cents per transactions. That's 0.0001 $1 per transaction. This bridge serves as a pressure valve for Ethereum projects needing to reduce wait times and gas costs for their users. So the tweet thread continues here. In celebration, the Solana Foundation invites developers from around the world to use Wormhole in our upcoming hackathon, which is starting on the 28th of October. So just in about 3 weeks time or so, actually a little bit less than that, 2.5 weeks. You guys can read about the rest of the details and information pertaining to that hackathon here. Solana up nicely, 8.1% on the day. So 8.1% gains in these last 24 hours, beating out the market to a current price of $2.57. All right, that about wraps it up for today, everybody. Hey, do be sure you're following us on all the regular social media channels and keep up to speed with altcoinbuzz.io for all the latest news and developments. Guys, hey, if you like today's piece, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. TGIF, everybody, have a great tail end of your week, a great start to your weekend. Stay safe out there, of course, and as always, we do hope to see you again soon in our next video. Take care.